Here's some names for pipes and ceilings. Additionally, between the two blue lines here, this is where you need to stand with like the camera speed. So that any questions before we do that? Yeah. I can't see. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our final meeting for Team 3 and the meeting that will introduce the incoming team for Team 5. Please hold any live streams that you have. We've had issues in the past with interference within our system. Additionally, please hold any questions you have until the end. You'll have an open period where you can ask for questions. We do have a large number of people in here, so if you're uncomfortable asking in front of a large group, we will be around afterwards to answer any questions that you do have. Finally, every of these little bars in the ceilings do are microphones. So please hold any side conversations so you do not pick them up for the people on the live stream. Finally, stats from today. Currently, the fire is sitting at 27,138 acres. It's 16% contained, and we have 1,053 people on the fire. With that, I'll turn it over to the weather. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Caleb Cravens. I'm the incident meteorologist trainee on this fire. I'm going to be sticking around probably for a little over a week working this incident. So let's talk about the weather. So as many of you know, we've had pretty active weather the past couple of days. We were talking about this critical fire weather heading our way, and sure enough, it's here and it is relentless, and we are continuing to see a critical fire weather in the future. So we had a red flag warning today. I talked with the weather service office in Salt Lake City. We're going to push out another one tomorrow and Wednesday. So multiple days of continued red flag warnings, and it's for this hot, dry, windy condition. For a red flag warning, that's what you need. So we had temperatures in the upper 80s. We actually saw temperatures today get into the 90s, the low 90s. I was at 8,000 feet today, and we were 91 degrees. That does not happen too often. Mid RHs, we're looking at single digits to low teens pretty consistently. And then probably one of our most impactful indices is the overnight recovery of RH. We're actually barely even getting out of the 20s to percent in some cases overnight. So overnight, we usually see RHs recover into the 30s, the 40s to 50%, and it allows fire activity to slow down. But we are not seeing that with this event. Not since mid last week. We've had RHs in the teens consistently every night. So the fire just continues to go through the night. Wind speeds, as you can see, consistently, we're southwest winds anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour for the remainder of the week. And we've been seeing that consistently. We actually had a little higher winds the past couple of days. So these are sustained winds. Gusts, we're expecting anything from 25 to 30 miles per hour. We've actually seen gusts as high as 40 miles per hour times at varying elevations across the mountain. So all these factors are providing this critical fire weather that's aiding to all this extra smoke you're seeing, all the extra fire activity. The weather, it's just been brutal. I mentioned at the last public meeting, if you were here, we were been keeping our eye on some moisture potential for midweek. And unfortunately, those probabilities are decreasing. So we're actually not seeing the moisture move over the incident. It's all staying displaced to the east. So what we're actually seeing are cloud cover. We do have some moisture moving in, not nearly as much as we were hoping for, but we are expecting between 30 to 40% cloud cover at times, which will help provide some shade. And then looking at the web checks for wind and rain going through the week, we're initially seeing some higher probabilities of maybe getting some wind and rain, anywhere from 1/10 of an inch or more, but those probabilities have also decreased. So now we're really only looking like a 5 to 10% probability. So fairly low there. Also, we were monitoring the potential for some lightning with this monsoonal moisture, but since we are seeing that trend diminishing, we also are seeing that chance diminish, which is a good thing. There is a small potential. We have like a 20% probability on Wednesday, Thursday, where we may not see precip, but the storms are going to be nearby and we could see some dry lightning, but that probability is also decreasing. So that's good news there. As we move through into the weekend, we really don't have any better news, unfortunately. I feel like I'm always giving bad news as an IMET, and it's holding true here. So as we move into the weekend and into next week, we actually are looking at conditions worse than what we've seen in the past couple of days. We're looking at RHs in single digits returning with even higher temperatures, staying around the upper 80s into the 90s. So this weather's not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. So I hate to be the very bad news, but that's just what's going to happen. So that's kind of your weather update. Not as good for any moisture like we were hoping, but that's the thing. The weather changes all the time. So we're going to work with what we can get. So I'll pass it over to Mike Pagoda here, our fire behavior analyst.
All right, good evening, everybody. Mike Pagoda, fire behavior. My job is I get to take all of his weather inputs, the conditions of the fuels, and I look at the terrain and I try to predict what kind of fire behavior our firefighters are going to see out there. What you don't see on Caleb's matrix is the week before. The week before is just as red as this upcoming week. So these conditions, like he said, have been around a while. They've actually done a lot of stress to those fuels out there. Now, fuel is what we call anything that's able to burn, whether it's a live or a dead fuel, so it's standing log or a live tree. These fuels right now are super, super stressed because of the conditions that Caleb just mentioned, meaning that they're super receptive to any kind of fire that we have out there. So because what we've got the fire, we have a lot of steep terrain. I know a lot of recreation happens out there. You guys have been out in the woods, you know what it looks like. There's some of those canyons that are incredibly steep. We get fire down below in those, and just like anything, heat rises. So the heat's been going up those canyons, whether it's the fire or the sun, and it's been cooking those fuels and drying them out even further. So now we have a super dry environment, super dry fuels, and now fires introduced to that environment. So what that causes a lot of the fire behavior that you guys have seen. And really it's the conditions that we're seeing now. We're setting records for this time of year, and we're seeing fire behavior that's really only seen under like the most severe conditions. That's happened very few times. I went back and looked at some data from the day that this fire really grew and doubled in size. And I was able, in the last 20 years, find two records of the similar type conditions. So for a 20-year period, it only happened two times that we had those similar weather conditions. So that kind of tells you the type of rare event that this fire in this area is under right now. So with that, our firefighters are seeing brown runs, meaning the fire's getting up into the canopy of the trees and running across the tops. We're seeing spotting, meaning it's throwing embers out in front of itself. We're seeing spotting up to about a half mile. So when you're working, and we're working on dozer lines and roads and those kinds of things, where we have a secure area that we're feeling very comfortable, all it takes is one tree in the middle of the fire that may not have been burned as well as some of the other stuff, spots a half mile, and then we're kind of restarting over. So very challenging conditions. Given the weather forecast, we're not seeing really any change with some of that stuff as the fire continues to move to the northeast, to the east a little bit, and then also to the southwest and southeast a little, or southwest, as it is backing down in the Dry Creek area. So one benefit that we do have is as it moves down slope, we transition from those large, heavy timber fuel to more of the sagebrush, brushier type fuels. So that's a benefit because we're not putting up those, 200-foot flame lengths. We're not seeing that great big huge spotting distance that we have, and it's a lot more favorable conditions. The downside is they're still a fuel, they're still super dry, they're critically dry, and they tend to be more influenced by winds. So as we get down to those lower slopes, and as the fire continues to move down to those lower slopes, we're going to see higher rates of spread, but lower flame lengths and less spotting distance. So you kind of get the good with the bad in some of those areas. It's a little easier to work too, rather than on the mountaintops and the steep canyons with those great big huge fires or with the great big, heat that's produced out of there. So those are the conditions that they're seeing right now. You're going to see those conditions again. And even on that matrix there, those 2 yellow days, our firefighters aren't going to know the difference, or they're not going to feel the difference. The environment is still critically dry. It's still bad. The fire is going to pretty much respond the same way. So kind of what we've got going on. It's going to persist until we get some kind of change or until the fire can get down to a spot where we can really get a good grip on it. So with that, I'll turn it over to our operations staff with Matt Call and Jason Porter.
Mike, I'm Matt Call. This is Jason Porter. We're the two of the operations section chiefs. Mike just described a Armageddon type situation, right? One of the terms he brought up was spotting. Basically means the fires throw numbers out, right? Out in front, away from the edge of the line. One thing he didn't bring up is something we call PIG, which is an acronym that means probability of ignition. What's the PIG for today? It's expressed in percent, right? So what's the PIG out there? 100%. 90 to 100%. So what that means is as an ember flies out, if it's still on fire, if it hits the ground in a receptive fuel, 100% chance it's going to start another fire. 100% chance away from the edge of the line. So that's the environment that we have to deal with. We don't have just a fire front that we can just fight. We can't just put a dozer line or 7 dozer lines or 20 dozer lines in front of it. Half mile, quarter mile, 3/4 of a mile, and we'll have 20 fires. So we have to change our tactics or get out of the way and find a terrain or a fuel where we can fight it. And that's kind of the situation that we're dealing with. So we're going to start with the south. You guys are looking south and you see the smoke above Monroe, right? We're going to start with that one and talk about where that's at, what that's doing, and then we're going to work north and kind of where the big kind of main fire is moving towards. So Jason spent the day out watching the fire pretty much all day, sending photos, talking to fire behavior, talking to weather, and then engaging our tactical resources where we could, and some of them had to back off, right? So Jason, we talk about south, like as we look south, what's that big column of smoke south in Division Alpha?
Okay, you're seeing that column kind of on the southwest corner. We've got Dry Canyon that comes out there. What that fire keeps doing there, that's that steep, really nasty country that's talking about. There's no road access in there. It's literally just down one ridge, up the next, down, and it's just not a good place to put folks. So What keeps happening in here is we get a little bit of what we call rollout, or, embers, burning material. It's so steep in there, it'll just roll down the hill. So it's either rolling out or it's just backing down a timber stringer till it gets to the bottom. You kind of have this confluence of drainages right in the bottom. And it gets a different wind alignment on it. When it gets that, it's just burning back hill right up into itself. So just kind of a seesaw pattern in here where it'll come down the ridge, get in the bottom, come back up. And it's just kind of doing that as it works through these ridges. We do have concern, we don't want to see this thing get ahead of steam somewhere, get some alignment where it could push around this corner and start making a new run north. So we do have this contingency line. This is what we would call this a dozer line up there, in case we needed to catch that. However, we did see some ridge lines down there where we were able to get the scooper planes and some carbon in there. Starting to come out to some lighter fuels, more of grass and brush. While we're talking retardants, we've seen some areas the last couple of days where we tried to put it in a timber to catch some of those spot fires, and our resources get in there. Finding it's not even hitting the ground just because that canopy is so tight. So if we can get it in the lighter fuels, it's much more effective. It's getting right on the ground. It's pre-treating the grass and the brush. And that fire hits it, it's not chewing through it. It's saturated with that retardant. So that's going to keep doing that for a little bit. They are looking at some lines in here to get a little bit closer, slow that down. And a lot of this in here between these old burns, some of these treatment areas, it's just very inaccessible. We're concerned about keeping it from going north, but it's really going to keep chewing to the south in here where we just can't get into. And we've already got a natural catcher's mitt there with these prior treatments and projects. Everything's looking really secure against Manning Meadows. We don't see a lot of threat of that trying to come out there. We've been working some line over there to tie these old burns together with fuels already been consumed in previous years. Just really block that in on the south end.
Our containment went up to 16%, and that could go up and down. And what that means is that the fire grows, we have more outline of the fire. So that doesn't mean that the containment line necessarily mean that the containment line we lost. We just gained more perimeter. So that percentage might go down if the fire grows more. Our goal is to hold what we've got and we have so far, and for that number to go up. But expect as this grows, that number can kind of fluctuate a little bit. We have containment line up in Delta on the left side, and we're using that as an anchor point to move north. So we had a little bit of fire up that way. What was going on that way on that ridge line?
Yeah, this is still looking great. We've really not had any heat near this line. Good mop up, good solid containment line. It does get into a little place right in here where we just can't quite get resources into. It's just goat rock, steep country. But it's also rocky and barren of fuel. So we're feeling pretty good about that corner. Now we do have a long stretch here that you see the map shows there's no containment on. What we did today is we flew a hot shot crew up to the top, dropped them off, and they were able to start walking this edge down. They're doing a tactic we call full trailing. If that fire's already come out to light fuel, it kind of burned itself out. They'll just work along there, literally hands in the dirt, feeling for hot spots. I've seen these guys hands and knees, crawling around trying to see if they can find any heat. They'll just work down that line doing that. If they find a hot spot, they'll take care of it. And that's the idea where this has really kind of put itself out. We're just going to go back in and double check, make sure we don't feel or find any heat in there. And hopefully we'll see that show up as a containment feature here in the near future.
So the biggest smoke we saw was kind of from the head of the fire. We saw 2 columns from where we were at. And you texted me asking about those 2 columns and how they might be interacting and creating adverse conditions for the fire because those 2 columns can affect each other. So we talk about kind of where those were and what that fire behavior was, where it was going.
Yeah, so yesterday, I'll just back up a little bit, show you what set the stage for this, what's going on today. We had some great work done, accomplished, right here behind Porter's property. We had a good burnout as the fire advanced, and we really felt that yesterday, getting out there yesterday morning. It was accomplished in the previous shift. Yesterday morning, this was all looking really good here. Kind of a pattern we've seen for 3 days now. We've just about got a point captured where we want it. The wind hits the fire, something interior that hasn't quite burned yet, torches out, tree torches up. And it lofted spot fires clear across that valley, across that property, and started a new fire out here. We had aircraft on that as quick as we could. That wind hit that and it just took off through that next timber stand. So that was the push you saw last night is this little bubble right here on our map. So what we had happen today, we were really expecting that south wind again to just keep pushing it out this ridge. We put a dozer line in place. You can see this hash mark here represents that dozer line all the way down into Bear Valley, coming out to the north again, just to put a obstacle there that we can work off of and let that fire with that dozer line. Initially, that fire made a good run of our dozer line. It threw spots. We've got one spot out here, probably about a mile off of the fire's edge. We were able to knock that one down with aircraft. Had several spots over the dozer line. The way that was moving down, we hit a decision point to start burning that dozer line. Little dicey at first with that wind pushing. And then we developed another column right over here on this corner. And what that really did is it pulled the heat generated, pulled the two columns together. It was actually a very beneficial thing for this burnout operation. Because then we developed the north wind and it was just really pushing that fire off the dozer line and back up into itself, which we want to do. And it reduces the chance of getting spot fires across the line now the wind's going in the right direction. That it threw another spot across the road up into Big Lake on this ridge. And when I left, the three pieces of fire were kind of pulling together out in here and merging together. So really just kind of filling up that hilltop. We do have some firefighters that are probably going to be staying the night in Big Lake because their access has been cut off. They're staying good wife area up in there. They're feeling good about being there tonight. But I just wanted to mention that because it does show how fast conditions change out there with this fire. It's 3 times now that it's really jumped up and concluded to us that you're going to have to back off. There's nothing you can do other than just take care of your safety.
How's that going to affect the 24th and Annabelle and those communities along the 24 there? Yeah, it's posted that way.
Let's talk about the Highway 24. You've got Burrville, of course, Kashuran. Really, this thing is just kind of burning past Burrville. We're feeling good about Burrville. This long flank of fire kind of held on a ridge top, and there's a lot of young aspen in there. Doesn't want to burn through that. Really green in there. Did pick up some activity right north of Belt Country. It's kind of pushing down towards the flat and keeping an eye on that. But we're feeling pretty good about holding that fire down through Bear Valley. It comes off the hill. Again, it comes out of that timber, out of the brush into grass. That's going to be more effective. Dozers are more effective. The engines, all of our tools are going to do a lot better in both things. As far as talking Glenwood and Annabella, you see these darker colored areas on the map. These are areas the forest has previously treated. So we're looking at those as like, hey, we've got some good features out there that if it tries to run off to the west on us, that's a point to work with. So we spent the day, a couple of hotshot crews that weren't needed on this line, started scouting out here to see what we could do to put some line in and tie back into these treatments. And that again would be our feature that we'd like to see that fire held on out in there.
How are those treatments going to stop or slow down the fire?
So just the absence of fuels. Most of those are burn units. They're within the last 5 or 6 years. So you just lose all that ground fuel. That's what's really making this fire so hard to fight out. There's the amount of dead and down in the ground. You heard our weather and fire behavior talk about how receptive fuel guard spotting. Those dead logs, with all that litter on the understory, that's what's catching the spots. That's what's largely carrying the fuel in this fire. Just so much of it that it's allowing it to get up in the crowns of the trees. So you get in these treatments, the crown spacing is not as dense, the ground fuels aren't present. to the extent that we're seeing everywhere else. Again, that's where our tools become more effective. Aircraft works, the guys on the ground, the dozers, they can get into that country.
What are the engines and crews doing in Porters and Bagley and Monroe and Manning?
So we don't want to turn our back on anything. This, Matt mentioned an anchor point. And we feel like we've got a very good, two good anchors on each side of the fire. We did get a spot fire, just to mention, out here in, by Bagley's today, knocked that one down quick. I think that highlights why we don't want to turn our back on anywhere we've already got containment, because something torches out up the hill, throws a spot, and there we are again, trying to capture something behind us, trying to keep our crews safe so a new fire doesn't run into them. So we're going to continue to have a presence in all of this country. We're still completing mop-up in Monroe Meadows. We're still completing mop-up in Magleby. We just want to make sure there's no heat that's going to, have some success in there. We had a lot of cabins that we were worried about, and there's a lot of cabins still standing. We would hate to have just that one ember, that one hot spot that we haven't picked up. We're a mile away and it followed its way into a cabin. So we're going to keep revenues in there. Same with Porters. Everything looks good in there. There's no loss in there. They fired right off the backside of the property. Those cabins look good. We're going to continue to hold and improve in there. Same story with Long Flat, Big Lake, fire right behind some of the cabins in there. We've got resources that are going to continue to mop up and patrol that and make sure that nothing else pops up in there.
So our team's last days today. There's another team they're sliding in right behind us. So today I spent the whole day with my counterpart. Jason spent the whole day with his counterpart. But what's the plan? When you spent the day with your counterpart, what did you guys talk about? What's their direction? Can we expect them to make different? Change?
So the overall objective is not going to change. It's a full suppression fire. That will not change. They know they're coming in to put this fire out, to keep fighting it aggressively, to look for areas of opportunity to get our folks in there and get this thing taken care of. Some of their approaches may change. You look at this map and see how our divisions and branches are broken out. They're coming with a different composition of overhead. Talking to them on the line, they actually have some extra division supervisors. They can break the areas that these folks are working up to what works for them. And that's okay. There's tons of different ways to approach this on how we organize on the grounds that we put where. So that may look different. The faces you see in this meeting will look different. There are tactics out there. We had good discussions today about what's working and what's not. Fighting fire in the timber, it's not working. Spot fires, Matt mentioned, dozer lines, wide valleys, and we're getting spot fires across those. So we're talking about, let's be fighting fire where it makes sense, putting our resources where it makes sense in the fuel types and the drain pipes, where we know we're going to have a higher likelihood of success. So there may be some adjustments they make, but overall, again, that objective, they're here to put fire out.
All right, we will answer questions afterwards. Hopefully that helps. I know there's still a few questions. One thing I want to address, we have loved being here, helping you in your community. We are making the best decisions we can to achieve those objectives, but we also have to make decisions to put 800 people in harm's way. And that sits pretty heavy with us sometimes. When we see those young men and women that are related to me and you and him, and we put them in the engine and we slap them on the back and say, have a good day. They have to come back. So that's number one for us. Number two is making sure we put the landmarks. So that's in our minds. So remember that. That's kind of heavy sometimes. I know the losses you guys have are heavy, but those people have to come back. So that's first for us. So we appreciate your support, and we will be here after for no question. Thanks. Bill.
All right. So just a couple of things tonight from the sheriff's office. There's a slide there online. Take a screenshot of that. People in here to get a picture of that. That's my contact information. What I need people to do is if you have an LLC or a trust on the mountain, I need you to send me a message giving me a contact and a phone number for that LLC.
and the location of Monroe Meadows, Manning, Magleby, wherever it happens to be. Give me that information so I can get that set up, because if something happens to your property, I have to be able to contact you. And when we get ready to take people into these, I have to be able to contact you so we can set that up, so we can take you in to look at your property and get those things set up. So, so take that information. Any updates, the Facebook page, Surrey County, Utah Emergency Management. I put several updates each day on there. So, follow that, take a look at it. And like I say, when we start being able to get people into their properties, we'll start doing that. I expect probably within the next few days, we'll start being able to get people into some of these places. Next thing, Highway 24. If you're traveling on Highway 24, please be careful. There's going to be a lot of smoke on there. The wind's pushing that smoke right over it. So be careful on there, and please don't stop on the side of the road too much. We had a few near misses, and we want to make sure everybody's safe there too. All right. So if you're traveling on there, please just keep traveling. There'll be plenty of pictures from Facebook and everything else to look at what the fire's doing. So, and then the video release, Monroe Meadows and Manning Meadows. I've got those videos edited. And again, with those LLCs and that, I need those contact information so I know who to send that video to. All right. And so get me that, send me the emails for that stuff so I can get those sent out. And like I say, I've got a bunch of them are LLCs, no contact but an address. And so I can't send the video to an address. So I need a contact for those so I can get those out. And then lastly, I want to thank Team 3. These guys have been awesome to work with. I've met some great people on this team and had some great friends on this team that I'll know for the rest of my life. So these guys have been working their butts off, and they've been trying to get this thing done for us. I don't know exactly how many properties we have on the mountain, but to lose 7 properties out of the 200 and something that are on there, I think these guys have done a heck of a job. And so I want to thank them. Yeah, I want to thank them for everything they've done. And then I know we're going to be in good hands on Team 5 as they're moving in. So like I say, they've got the same attitude, same position on this, get in, put this thing out and get us back to normal as soon as they can. All right. So that's it from the sheriff's office. I'll answer questions after. Turn it over to Landon.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Landon Rowley. I'm the Central Area Fire Management Officer for the state of Utah. I'm representing the state as the agency representative today for Thomas. He asked me to say a few things today, and I wanted to start with a quote that I read today, this morning. It's about perseverance. It says, "Perseverance is not a long race. It's many short races, one after the other." I think this team that's been here, I want to start by thanking them for their perseverance. I want to thank the public for your perseverance. And it has been a lot of short races. We see a bunch of positive things that happen on the fire, and then the next day it's more challenges, and we're going after those and finding more positive things, and then more challenges. So as an agency, state agency, we'd like to ask the public to continue to also be, have perseverance. You've been great. You've been supportive. We really appreciate that. Next thing, it's a day of transition. We're transitioning to a new team coming in. Sometimes that poses a lot of challenges when we have transitions. We've seen a really good amount of cohesiveness between the two teams as they're starting to transition. The same thing goes with the public. You guys have been great. Continue to give this Team 5 the support that you've shown Team 3. The next thing, be vigilant. We've heard about the weather, right? We're hitting historical indices, historical dryness. Be vigilant as the public to make sure that we're having fire safety. The state of Utah pushes fire safety pretty heavy. Make sure our tires are good. Make sure our chains are not dragging on our trailers. We really appreciate the public and the amount of time that they spend recreating in this state. But let's be really careful right now. It's a tinderbox, and we don't want to add to the problem we've already got. So just a reminder there for that, and we appreciate you again as the state of Utah. Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Ken Walport. I'm the Forest Service Agency Administrator trainee. So I just want to, I know people have been very patient. I know the closure order has been a challenge. So you love to be up, you love to recreate, and obviously, public safety and firefighter safety prevention is one of our primary goals. So the Forest Suit did update the closure order this morning, so to make it slightly better. And the challenge with that is that at the time we're giving you more room on the south end of the fire. There's room being taken away on the north end, as you can see why is the fire activity. And so just to our map is maybe not all that great here. So the closure order as it was up Dry Creek Canyon and how about look there. So come down, there we go. So that the new closure order is going to start down on. It's going to follow the Bale Creek drainage up to Ogden Cabin. It'll follow the Box Creek drainage up to the Box Creek Reservoir. We're going to keep the reservoir closed because we have helicopters going in and out of there all day, getting out of there for safety reasons. And then the closure will go to the 069 Road, 068 Box Creek Road down to Greenwich. And right now that road is going to stay closed. So exclusive use for firefighters. It is used constantly all day long for firefighters in and out of the fire area. So we know there's some jamborees and some other things coming up. Those will be coordinated with the liaison office for special purposes, and there'll be a new liaison team there working through all those requirements for you. So we did want to also mention, people have asked, well, how long, common question, how long will this closure stay in effect? And in the burned area, really inside the footprint of that fire, we can expect that closure will stay in place really probably till a season ending event, snow or some other type of event. So, you saw it last week when things quieted down and there was, some people thought, well, maybe the fire's out. There was not a lot of smoke. A lot of things going on. There was a lot of heat retained out there, and that's going to be the same for this throughout this entire summer, particularly if we don't get a monsoon season and we don't get the rains that we normally would experience. And so you have retained heat out there, which can lead to fire activity. You have snags and trees that can come down, roots get burned out, and it's one of the most common dangers out here for our firefighters that trees come down. And so we will do everything we can to open up areas, but we have to keep focused on firefighter and the public safety in that area. So, the change is just everything we'll do to try to get you access. We know the hunts are coming up. DWR and the state are working on some items as it relates to that. So it's not a Forest Service decision that rests with the state, but we are doing everything we can to participate and work with that. So as I turn it over here, I'm reminded of a famous quote by Ronald Reagan, who said one of the most dangerous things you can hear is someone say, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." I hope that in this case that Ronald Reagan would be proud of us. I hope you are. As I turn this over to Brett Waters, the outgoing IC for Great Basin Team 3. I think his team and the people on the ground have done an incredible job. And I know that Great Basin Team 5 will continue that effort. Thank you for your patience and your support in the community. We appreciate it greatly. Brett Waters.
Thanks, Ken. Brett Waters, IC Great Basin Team 3. And this is the last time that I'm going to be visiting with these folks. I want to express our appreciation from Great Basin Team 3 for all the support and how gracious you folks have been to us. This has been a bad day, a lot of bad days. You know, your mouth has not been impacted heavily. And hopefully we've been able to help a little bit to alleviate some of that concern and take care of some of the problems that are there. And Great Basin Team 5 is just going to continue that work. So, so there's, as you can see by what Matt and Jason went over, there's still a lot of heat up there. There's still a lot of fire up there. And as Ken mentioned, the snags. I really want to let you know that I mentioned this a couple of nights ago. Those snags are bad. Even if they're black and they're fire weakened, but there's some that are still alive barely, and standing, and they're fire weakened too, or they're just weakened from the beetle kill. And so when you get back up onto the mountain and in this area, four-wheeling, snowmobiling, just hiking, please be careful. Guys, I really hope that you can be really super cautious and that nothing does any harm. We have had a great safety record, zero injuries and zero accidents. And this type of environment in these types of conditions, that's pretty amazing. So hopefully when we turn this back over to you folks, you will be in good shape too. There's a lot of spots out there, like, I bet everybody's talking about, there's those spots, and it doesn't take anything for one of those embers to start another fire. And we're off to the races again. And that's been, Mother Nature's been kept testing us, and so that's been the continuing thing. Spot after spot after spot, and then they grow super quick. So we've got a lot of good resources here. Excellent group of firefighters that have been very aggressive taking care of this for you. And Team 5 will be able to do the same thing. So again, thank you very much for your support. I've had a lot of folks say, yeah, I'll come back, but not when there's smoke. And more fun. Yeah, welcome back. So appreciate the welcome back, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. I'd like to introduce the incoming IC of Great Basin Team 5. Trent and I have been working together for quite a few years, and our teams back follow each other. So we do this a lot. Trent's got a great team. Yeah, he talks a little bit funny. He's from the southern part of the state, maybe even a part of it. But you'll get to understand real good. If you got sweet tea, he's very much happy. We'll be happy to meet you. But you're in good hands. Great Basin Team 5 is a great team with a lot of good folks. A lot of folks that are from Utah here too, just like our team. So appreciate he's going to do a good job for you. Appreciate it. Get all the support and everything you've done for us. Let me turn it over to the new IC, Brett.
And yeah, so we have a little competition, if you will, going on. Team 3, Team 5, who's better? We'll one up him and all this. And after all the kudos and all of her about Team 3, all I'm going to go with is I'm younger than he is. But my day job, I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I manage fire on Air Force installations. So get to deal with DOD and a bunch of that stuff. I've been in the Great Basin as an incident commander. So I think this is my 5th year. I've been in firefighting business for about 27 years. I think I added up. So as far as Fire Utah Team 5, we've been to Twilla. I think I said that right. We've been to Beaver. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were over on the French Canyon Fire in Painwich. And now we're here. I'm sorry we're here because of what you're dealing with fire. Nobody likes the fire and whatnot. But if we do go to a fire, it's always good to go to a place that you're welcomed and a lot of good people to deal with. No sweet tea. I'm trying to adjust and learn to drink unsweet tea. It's not working well, but I'm one day in. But a lot of times, ask ourselves, why do we fight? And whatever you do, when you look at the map, when I look outside, whether you recreate, whether you fish, whether you hunt, some people just like to go out outside and look at the beautiful mountainside. right? So that's why we're here. We're here to see what we can do to put this thing out. I know it's a disturbance to you. We'll do everything we can, just like Team Three did, to reduce, the hardship on you or whatnot, and hopefully get some normalcy back in your lives. Yeah. So anyway, that's why we're here. We love what we do. We're glad to be here, and we thank you for your hospitality. And I look forward to talking to you and seeing you in the next couple of weeks or so. Thanks. And I want to introduce, before I do that, let me introduce also, if I'm not here, I have an IC trainee, Wayne Rushing. You'll see him. He's right here with me. Wayne, this is my trainee. And then I have a deputy incident commander, Gwen Sanchez. She's a short blonde. They say behind every good man's a great woman. So she's here with us, keeping me in line. So you'll probably meet her too. And then my information officer, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Bartlett. I'm an information officer out of Virginia. I'm off the George Washington Jefferson Forest out there. I'd just like to say thank you so much to Mary and Thomas who've been providing information for you. They handed off a great package to us, and we're going to continue that on. And it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to serve y'all. And I'm looking forward to working with you and working here and keep you informed. I kept that short.
Thank you, folks. Once again, my name is Thomas Pence. I'm with Pink Mason Team 3. This is now your time. So we're going to turn it over to you. But before we do have representatives from the BLM and the DWR here to answer questions. We did not hear from them, but they are here to answer those questions. So with that, it's your time. Feel free to raise your hand and we can get you your question heard.
Is the area inside of the burn line, is that mostly consumed? Or is there a lot of chance of that starting up again?
So that's a good question. We get that question a lot. Our primary focus is the perimeter. We want to see this thing stop expanding, stop growing. There are definitely areas, it's good and bad. When you go back up here, you might have a favorite meadow, favorite place up in here, might still be there. But we do have that concern, if heat's still out there within the fire, still moving around. Primary mission though, we've got to get around the perimeter. We have to get that contained. Once we get that contained, we can start getting a little bit more depth on our mop up and things like that. There are going to be places out there we just can't get into. You all know there's a lot of dead timber on that mountain. Brett talked about fire weakened trees. There are going to be places where that risk versus reward, it's just not worth putting people into that dead timber that's fire weakened. When we know that the fire itself is not going to continue to spread outside of its footprint. So we have to be very careful with how we look at that. If we're talking areas around values like your homes, your cabins back in here, absolutely. We're going to go back in there and we're going to secure those green islands. We call that an island if it hasn't burned. But we can't chase down every one of those. We've got to go where it makes sense and where it's safe to do so.
Thank you. Next question.
I received a text during this meeting that Highway 24 would actually be closed. All Source Ranch employees have been notified that it would be closed, but I did not get that information. So I like to be careful on it. Don't stop taking pictures. That'd be accurate that it will be open tomorrow.
I haven't had any word to Highway 24 being closed. I know we have let Highway know that that's a possibility, but right now we're not anticipating that. And so I don't know what the notice you got or where it came from. But no, we're not anticipating that at this moment anyway.
I'm going to trust you over the person who can.
Yeah. I can't guarantee, but I would say yes, it'll be open tomorrow.
Let's go online and answer a question there really fast.
Yeah. They can have the two-parter. So the first one is, we're seeing significant plate and downslope progress in the Burville area lowest wind shift late this afternoon. Can you tell us why? And then the second part is how close are we to pre-evacuation, or when will you even evacuate us? Could it happen tonight?
So I will say, we've had a few reports the last couple of days. Even our own folks in camp look up on the hill and think, man, that's getting close. I will say, especially at night, it is deceiving. You know, we're talking Burrville, a good probably 4 to 5 miles off the fire's edge. We are keeping an eye on it. We currently don't have any plans to evacuate Burrville. Look, we changed maps. So should we go back to that map? I just want to show you, there's a lot of lines on our maps that you probably aren't familiar with. You don't know what the markers mean on there. If we can get back.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I can get stopped at this one. Oh, we're way up here. So there's a yellow line on our other map that it kind of runs down here through this, almost the toe of the slope. You know, you got some steep slopes and then it kind of mellows out in here, a little less steep. We've got a line on our map that's called a management action point. It's basically just a reminder to us that, hey, if the fire gets this point, there's something we need to do. And the something we need to do on that line is get with emergency management and start having a discussion about evacuation. So right now, there's no pre-evacuation. There's no thoughts of doing so. Really, again, the fire's really wanting to spread more to the north. You probably do see some active flame on this eastern side. It's not moving rapidly. It does get in that timber. It puts up a lot of flames, becomes very visible. But we really feel like we've got a lot of time in here. We've got some dozer lines that we've also pushed out in this country, out in that, around that management action point. And we have some places to work from if it were to get down in there. And I also want to point out, we do have a night shift. We just back to this and go to bed and just let it do what it's going to do. There will be a presence out there. If they see it hit that point and they need to wait for the rest of us up, we're going to get into action. So just.
Yes, we have those plans in place. If we need to do that, they are in place, so we can do that. But no, we're not anticipating having to execute any of those plans.
Yes. Setting down slide. Yeah, fine. So we talked about getting into our homes, we talked about getting back on our properties. Right in there, accessible. So looking even beyond that, going into next year, I'm wondering what's going to be done to help with mudslides, that kind of stuff when the weather breaks. Sounds like when we sit and listen to this, it kind of sounds like you guys are focused on suppression right now and containment. But if we're waiting for significant weather to help put that out and actually squash that, what's give us some mudslides and some flash flooding. But right in the mouth of Monroe Canyon, if you guys are going up towards Monroe Peak in that area, you'll notice there's a power plant. The good folks in Monroe have their own power plant there. And just wondering about some of those kind of things that might be problematic coming in the spring.
It's, and all those things, and we daily coordinate with our cooperators on what we can do to minimize fire impacts, what we can do to get people up in there, either to shut down at the pump system or other types of things in order to help to keep sedimentation or other types in there. As we move a little further in this fire, we'll bring in a team called the Burned Area and working with local communities, local resources, state. And they'll put together a plan and request funding to come in and help with sedimentation in watersheds. And that plan just builds around it. It typically will take 4 to 5 years. That will include reforestation, help minimize impacts from this fire as we head towards water activities of monsoons, all those things. And so we're daily working through that and doing everything that we can to build a plan. So that team will help to finalize that.
All afternoon. We've got state agencies, 2 of them, working with him to get these hydro plants back in functioning. NRCS doesn't do that anymore, but we have state funding that'll all of those folks get involved. It's just like down in Panguitch when they lost their water system on the Bryan Head fire, or down in Marysville, or up to Stopson and Twilla. We helped them all, and we'll help Monroe City. And Bear Valley, one's Garcanes that serves all of Wayne, Paiute, part of Garfield. If you, and they're the voltage where, but between the phase wires, they can ionize, cause sparks, and so. Oh, you do that intermittently. You did that with the cold fire. So I'd ask you to do that. Thank you.
Then I would like to respond to that.
Again, in our cooperator meetings, these are things. I don't know if there's anybody here from power companies at the meeting right now. But we have representatives from both Darkane and Utah Power that are at those meetings. And I know they've been out there doing a lot of work around those poles to keep those running. And so I know that's on everybody's radar.
Back to online and take one more question from online, and then we'll take one more question from the room before we turn it over.
So this one says to BWR. Are you having any preliminary discussions yet about the possible exception on the big game tax surrendering, especially for archery?
Very good question. Yeah, we had actually a really good council with our director's office today. We gave them all the up-to-date information on acres and direction of the fire and how much is of the units closed to hunting. So they will be making that decision in the next 1 to 2 days on what we will do to help those with archery permits, in particular the limited entry out permits. And I think they'll be happy with the resolution, the options that they'll be given. And for future hunts, even past there in our September and October hunts, they'll be making any decisions there. But the good thing about that is there is time to surrender your permits for those later hunts now, given our normal current system. So I encourage those with permits to keep an eye on the fire and the maps and the closures and make appropriate decisions. But those hunters, especially those archery permit holders, will be contacted via email or telephone or some other way shortly to give them what their options are.
Thank you. One more in the room.
not trying to, trust me, I'm not trying to demean anybody or any decisions that were made or anything like that. But I think we deserve an answer to why the decision was made to backburn private property coming out of Long Flat. And where was the dozer line that was supposed to be brought from Deep Lake across to the main road and everything else on that aspect of it? And how secure, we never hear anything about Long Flat. You're always talking about Porters, you're talking about all of those. How secure is Long Flat from that coming back around, coming up to us? Anything in that situation?
Okay, so really good question there. The decision to, I'll break it down, the decision to burn out there was due to the fire behavior. We started implementing the dozer line in there, and the way that started spawning and really moving through there was a trigger point that was pretty much our only option to take the punch out of that fire. You know, it was moving with such intensity, if we didn't remove some of that fuel in front of it, it was really gonna make the hard. That was the decision point. It's looking really good in there. You know, we have structures very, very close to the burn. They've been in there mopping that up. The south side's looking really good. As far as coming around the north side, I mean, the big thing with Long Flat is it's just such a big, open, good metal system area in there that it really gives us a natural feature from that fire coming from the north and looking around on a lot of that area. There's a lot of your properties and structures in there that they were pretty defendable by nature. There's not a lot we had to do, you know, with big metal systems. That being said, we've got every cabin, every value in their inventory. It's in our maps. Every firefighter has access to it, just like we did in any other property out there. So just as the fire came through this area, these structures, we've done physical preparation work, you know, removing vegetation, some dozer lines around some of them, you know, we're more concerned. And same thing with the success we had in Magby, tons of pumps, tons of hoses, pumpkins, the water tanks. We've spent days and days just working in there to secure those structures the best we can if fire does make its way around in there. So red's definitely diminished now that we have a buffer here, but it's not gone. You know, there is concern that it could keep working around or we get a spot fire. Again, the good thing you've got going on the west side is there's already a lot of previous treatments out there. So we've kind of got some catching actions and blocks already in place out there. We are expecting it to keep working around the hill on the north side of Long Flat. Again, good metals, good safety areas up there on top. We've got a lot of good features to work from. And I do apologize if we haven't spoke to Long Flat in detail enough, but I do want you to know that we have been in there. Probably within like second or third day we arrived.
You know you've been in there. I mean, I've been in there. I've been there while you've all been in there. I understand that. I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning how much heat is still on that southern end.
Yeah, it's, you know, most of that moved itself back up towards the main fire. Again, right against the property is looking really good. There's still heat there. There's still mop up we're doing. We've got engines and hand crews in there continuing to work that, but it looks really good.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. With that, we're going to end the virtual side of our briefing, but we will be here to answer any questions that you still have. It does take a team to roll this information out and this operations out. So we appreciate all the time that you've given us. Thank you so much. Good night.